What's up, ZBrushers? Welcome back to ZFever. My name is Ricky, and today we're going to be making a hand. So this is not going to be a full-blown anatomy course. However, I am going to show you how to build something like this using basic primitive shapes here inside of ZBrush. We're not going to be using Z-spheres in any form or fashion. I will show you the basic techniques on how to get things into place, and then we'll start dynameshing things together, and then we'll go briefly into some detailing options. All right, so let's go ahead and make ourselves a new project. I'm just going to grab a Z-sphere, or just a regular sphere, not a Z-sphere. Make it a polymesh 3D. Turn on my polyframe. Check where I'm at in the world. Go ahead and get symmetry on. All right, so we're going to be using a lot of transpose, and we're going to be using some clipping functions. So let's go ahead and knock that out. What I mean by that, okay? So when we're using transpose, we're going to be using move, scale, and rotate. So if you're using the transpose lines, if you grab the center line, right now I'm in symmetry, so it's going to be, stretching this all crazy, right? You can use a couple of things. You can hold Alt, click, drag, and it's just going to clip this thing up, give us a flat surface, right? If we are working with rotate, let me go ahead and turn off symmetry. If you're working with the rotate, my recommendation is to use this as kind of a lever, right? So pick which side that you want to rotate from, and then just rotate it as you see fit, unless you specifically have a reason to rotate from the center or some other place. Then scale, click, drag it out. When you're working with move, if you hold control, click this center circle and drag, it will make a duplicate, right? And it'll stay on the same subtool. So we're going to be using that along with polygroups and auto groups, right? All right, so something else that we need to focus on is we're going to be using trim curve, right? And I'm going to show you the difference between trim curve and clip curve. All right, so let me go ahead and dynamesh this piece. I'm going to dynamesh it at a resolution of 48. Dynamesh. Okay, let's talk about clip curve and trim curve. So if you hold Control and Shift, you can access your selection tools, right? And if we go and we grab a clip curve, what it's going to do, and if you click out and drag, it's going to push everything up in the direction from which this gradient is. So you'll see that it's all pushed up. But what it's doing is it's really just smushing all the geometry up to one line, right? And sometimes people will do this and it'll see how it the geometry sticks out like that. This is why we're not going to use the clip curve, because really if we are wanting to make a cut, we want to use a trim curve. And what this is going to do, grab this line, what this is going to do is it's just going to cut the geometry there, and then it's going to cap it off, right? So you'll see this highly triangulated thing right here. All right, so we're not going to be too concerned with topology so much. Once we get things lined up, we're going to dynamesh it, and then we will go through and use the Zremesher. So let's get to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a couple of things. Let's go ahead and grab them. I'm going to append a cube and a cylinder. Go ahead and get those into the document. Okay, so what we need to do first and foremost before we get too far is let's go ahead and have a look at some reference. So what I've got is this program called Liqueur Shame Up, and as I mentioned previously, it was developed by Scott Eaton and Mike DeFeo, right? And so they have a few Ecochets, right? And it's just you know, just a series of 3D models that we can use to help us understand how the human anatomy flows, right? The thing that I love about this is that I can zoom in on any portion of the body, right? It'll help me to gauge how things are supposed to flow. So you can turn this color reference on and off, and then there's the original Houdon Ecorche, which was improved upon by Scott. And then he also has these paint overs with reference that correlates to this information section over here. So it's very well documented, and it'll just help you to identify what things are, where they go, and things of that nature. The thing that I enjoy about this is that I can also have a look at the skeletal structure, what's underneath, how do things look. And then there's also this version, so it's very plainer and it's simplified, and it allows you to see how things look from a simplified view so that you don't get so inundated with major details, right? Okay, so what we'll be focusing on is the arm, right? And we want to break it down into some shapes, and that's exactly how we're going to go about this today. We're just going to break it down into basic shapes. No need to try to go this route straight out the gate. We can get there, but we got to keep it simple first, right? And so that's what we're going to do. So what we're going to be doing is building some primitive shapes. Some we're going to be using some cylinders, some cubes, some spheres, things like that to build things up. All right. So this application is like what, $4.99, $5.99. If just don't buy your latte today and go get this program. I promise you, you will not regret it. All right. So get this, grab reference. Reference is important, and make sure that you are using it because it doesn't make you less of an artist, it just makes you more professional. All right. So enough on that. Let's get back to ZBrush. All right. Now that we're back in ZBrush, let's get to this. So we're going to go ahead and start making this finger, right? And really all we're going to be doing is we're going to be using our transpose. So if I hold Alt, drag up, it's going to flatten out that surface, right? And then if I grab here and then hold Shift, it's going to smush it down, right? And so what we're making right now is these finger pads, right? Don't worry if the geo stretches; it's perfectly fine. Nothing to be worried about, right? So we're going to make this finger pad, and then we're going to control drag this out, and then we are going to press 1 on the keyboard to repeat that last action. Try that again. So it's gonna, if you press one, it's gonna repeat the last action that you conducted. So if you move around on on the document, it's going to record that and then repeat it. So there we go. We've got 3 finger pads, and then we're gonna come down and we're gonna say auto groups. Okay. So once we have this, now if we hold Control with transpose and click, it's going to isolate that polygroup, right? So we're just going to move these things into place. Try to make pretty quick work of it. If I hold Alt and grab this middle circle, it will deform the shape. So I kind of want to make a little bit of a dip here. And I'm going to go ahead and rotate this. And then I'm going to move it into place. All right. Okay. Let's go ahead and squish this one down just a little bit. All right, that should be good. So basically, once we're at this point, we kind of want to start going ahead and thinking about shape a little bit. So I'm going to grab my move topological brush, and the reason I want to do this is because it's going to recognize these polygroups, right? So I can start moving things around, shaping things out. And getting them to where I want them to be, right? And make sure that you're just following along with that reference. Liqueur Shame is a really powerful program. So it's like I said, it's like $6. So definitely get a hold of that. Okay, so we got that. Let's go ahead and grab our cylinder. Grab our cylinder and let's go ahead and rotate. I don't have symmetry on. While I'm rotating, if I hold shift, it's going to snap in increments. Okay. And then I also want to duplicate this. We're going to set it off to the side. Okay, so I'm going to control click, drag that one. Let's go ahead and do an auto groups on this. All right. So I'm going to isolate that. Scale this down. Squish this down. Move it right there. Then for this one, I'm going to rotate it. Okay. Scale this one down. Move this into place. Then we're going to stretch it out. Right. So now let's go ahead and duplicate this a couple of times. Angle that down so it follows the form of the finger. Then we'll drag this out one more time. Let's go ahead and squash it. Then we'll cant it up, move it down. Let's go ahead and do an auto groups. Then we'll isolate this guy. Control drag. And control drag one more time. Rotate this into place. Let's go ahead and kind of bury this in here. Then let's head back over here and make some adjustments. Kind of get things set into place. Right. Then let's go ahead and soften things up a little bit. This is going to kind of give us a bit of a shelf, so maybe let's come in here with our trim dynamic, right? Just kind of cut in here a little bit. There we go. Just kind of round things out. This does not have to be perfect at this point, okay? Do not focus on perfection. It's just going to slow you down. Okay, so clear that mask, and I'm going to do an auto groups. And then let's go ahead and save. Yes, thank you. Make sure you save like you breathe. Okay, so at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to move this up in the subtool palette. So the way that you would do this is just use these arrows. So I'm going to move it up. And then what I want to do is I want to go ahead and merge these down. It's going to give you a warning, say it's an undoable operation, and there are ways around this. So as long as you have different polygroups, you can always do a group split and get things back into a separated place. Additionally, by having these things separated into different polygroups, we can come back and use our move topological brush and set things into place as we would like for them to be without affecting the entire mesh. Okay, so we have this done. And now what we're going to start doing is I'm going to speed up this process and just kind of talk at you a little bit. So what we're doing is we're just taking the primitive shapes that we've made and just moving them around and making things as necessary. So at this point, we're building the palm. Really all I've done is taking a cube and shaped it with the transposed line. And then I've duplicated it here, scaled it down a little bit, and rotated it. And basically all I'm doing is I'm just trying to fit things into place and make the primitive shapes mimic what we would see on the human hand, right? So I'm going to rotate this down, and then what you'll see is I'm going to dynamesh this together, and then I'm going to come back with my trim curve and chop that thing off. Sometimes you have to do it a couple times for whatever reason. ZBrush likes to be funny with us. Just shaping it out a little bit here. I'm going to cut that ledge right there. And that'll help our finger just to kind of fit into place. And then here we're just moving things around, trying to fit more of that shape that we're familiar with. if you mask off an area, and you can use that just to edit one portion of that rather than affecting the entire thing. So here I'm clipping it again to get that wedge shape of the top of the hand. All right, just fitting things into place now. And here we're going to start duplicating the fingers. So what I'm going to do is I changed my mind here and decided, you know what, I don't want to mess with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate that actual piece, and then I'm actually going to dynamesh it together so that we have one solid chunk. But always definitely save your work so that you don't have to go back. So basically all we're going to do at this point is just control drag these fingers out and then bounce back and forth between that and our auto groups to get us everything that we need. Apply a rotation here. Another rotation to get things to fit into place. As you can see, it's just a matter of just moving things into place, nothing crazy. And here I'm just stretching out the thumb, getting things to line up the way that I want them to. At this point, we're just going to start moving the fingers around, applying rotation to them, just kind of applying that fan that you normally see. The middle finger should remain pretty much straight on. Applying a scale to the pinky, otherwise known as the digiti minimi. And we're just going down the line, just applying slight rotation to each digit. So you can see you can get pretty far just by using the transposed tools. We really haven't done much sculpting at all other than just smoothing things out. Always make sure that you're rotating around the model, and definitely be sure to save as much as possible. There's nothing worse than making a ton of progress and then losing it. So at this point I'm making the top of the hand, right? Rather than try to sculpt on top of what we already have. I'm just fitting this into place, applying a rotation so it kind of matches that wedge, and then another rotation in the Z here, or the X actually. We dynameshed it, and throughout this entire process, basically we pretty much sticking with a pretty low resolution, about 50. You really don't need much more than that. Just take your time shaping things out. Now we're developing the pads on the bottom side of the hand, the palm actually. Just moving things into place, shaping them around. This by doing things this way, you save yourself sculpting time in the long run. So you can either spend your time there or you can spend your time here. It's your choice. Basically, just control drag that one off, applying the more shaping. Come down here and dynamesh the piece. Auto groups. And at this point, we're going to start working on the knuckles, right? You know, we already have a bit of a shape there that came with the finger, but I just kind of want to accentuate it a little bit more, just kind of like we have going on in the reference there on Liqueur Shame. We just kind of want to mimic that entire thing. So what we're doing is just going back and forth between the rotate and the move, and maybe a little bit of skill. Mostly just move and rotate. Just get things to move into place. Just flatten that area out. You just want to continue to move around, make sure that things fit the way that they need to. And here we're going to start applying a rotation to the fingers themselves, so they're not all pointing the same exact area, because they just don't naturally. Go ahead and apply one to the thumb. It's not really necessary, but everything helps, right? It's better to be safe than sorry. Worst case scenario, you just smooth it out at the end. So at this point, we're going to start working on the forearm. So basically, just dragging a cube in there. I'm going to dynamesh it here in a second, and just start building up shapes that basically represent the underlying bone and muscle structure. Not actually making the radius or the ulna, but we do want to have something there to give this thing some form. And I go back and I reduce the resolution because it's just not necessary to have such a high resolution. In fact, think I'm bringing it down to 16, just because it's such a large piece. And Dynamesh is going to operate off of the size of the mesh, right? And so we definitely want to make sure that we're not going higher in the amount of topology than we actually need to. So there I remeshed it at a lower level, and that really helps out the process. So essentially all we're doing is we're making the extensor muscles of the arm that extend all the way down to the fingers, right? So if you ever just look at your hands and just wiggle your fingers, I know a lot of people that get jealous whenever they can't see it on themselves, but you wiggle your fingers and you can see those extensors, contracting, and so that's really all we're doing. We're just pulling things into place, right? Just giving kind of a basic representation of things. And then here I'm going back and forth using my move topological brush. And here in a moment we'll hop over to the rest of the mesh and just kind of start fitting things in to where they need to be. Like here, you know, you just bury things in there. It doesn't have to, this is not the point at which you start making things look picture perfect, right? At any point with this process, you can go through and make adjustments. And here is a good indicator as to why you want to make sure you're always got that auto groups going, because if two things are in the same group, then whenever you try to do a rotation or transpose one, it's going to do it to the other. Here we're starting to work on the underside of the forearm, the brachialis that runs all the way down. What I'm using here is a combination of the move brush, and then we'll hit it with the inflate brush, just to kind of expand things and then also contract them, just kind of get them to fit into place. At this point, I'm going to do a little bit of sculpting on that, just to try to make it fit in a certain way. And then at this point, I believe, yeah, we'll be duplicating that here in a moment. Yeah. So whenever you're doing that, it's good just to pull it off to the side and make your adjustments, and then fit it back in. If your geometry starts, going all crazy and looks crunchy and everything like that, there's always a way around it. Just hit it back with your inflate brush, and then it'll pretty much fix itself. I mean, even if you do get it into place and it looks kind of gross, dynamesh is going to fix it anyway. So really, don't get so caught up with perfection and all that great stuff that everybody seems to try to strive for. Just making some more adjustments. At this point, we're adding I believe it's a styloid process. Just getting that bony landmark into place. Here I'm going to do a little bit of sculpting to signify that bone there. Now here we're going to affect this cylinder. And what we're going to do is basically, we could sculpt this in later, but I would rather just go ahead, since I'm in this mode, go ahead and make these extensors and get that part out of the way. It just makes sense to do. I mean, we haven't dynameshed, we haven't done anything else yet, so might as well, right? So you can get these landmarks in there, get them into place, rather than fight with topology later, or try and take time sculpting. I mean, one way or another, like I said earlier, you're going to be spending time on this. So you can either spend it here, or you can spend it later doing your sculpting. Right? And at this point, we're starting to line things up, and we should be getting ready to start thinking about some dynamesh. But the first thing I wanted to do before doing that is wanted to get a little more in here. Wanted to put that extensor in for the thumb as well. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, right? So now we'll start looking into dynamesh. Okay, so you got this. We got all our little parts, right? And so what you want to do from this point, go ahead and clear this mask. Okay, and so what we're going to do basically is we're just going to go down the line and merge everything together, right? So before I do that, let me save just in case. All right. So merge down. I'm going to say always skip because I don't want to have to do a double click every single time. and merge down. Okay, so now we have this, and obviously I forgot about this guy. So let me isolate him and move this off to the side. The easiest way to get rid of this is just use your selection tool, right? Select lasso, hold Alt, and then it'll go away. And so now what I want to do is I want to go down to geometry, modify topology, and delete hidden, right? So that's gone. All right, so now that we have this, we want to go ahead and dynamesh this entire piece together. So before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and make a duplicate in case for some ungodly reason this thing goes wrong. Of course, we just did our save as well, so that's not a huge deal. So I'm going to dynamesh, set the resolution to something like 100, and control click and drag. It's going to go through, do its projection, and then now we have everything pretty much just welded together, but it's still bearing the shape that we had. So what I need to do is I could go through and I could, try to smooth things out manually. But what I like to do is go through and use my deformation, grab this polish slider and bring it all the way over, and it'll just kind of do that for us, right? And so I want to come through and just kind of smooth things out, soften them up. If you have to, go ahead and remesh, because that little point right there is just not having it, right? From this point, you got the basic shapes and things are going to read fairly well, right? At this point, it's just a matter of coming through and then just filling things in. But we don't want to be sculpting at this level. And the reason why is because it's just going to get in our way. We're going to slow our process down. And so what we want to do is we want to get this into some more manageable geometry, right? So before we do that, let me grab my trim curve, right? I'm just gonna chop that off. I'm gonna do a remesh real quick. Put that down a little bit. And so the next thing I want to do is I want to get some better geo. So at this point, we'll head over to the Zremesher. Before we do any Z-remeshing, we need to tell the Zremesher how we want things to be. So we'll hold Control and Shift, and then select this crease curve. Let me go ahead and make this all one poly group. We have this crease curve selected. Basically, what's going to happen is if you click and drag across, it's going to give us this line, right? And that indicates where ZBrush is going to recognize that we want a crease. But we're not going to be using creases. We're going to be using something else, right? So go through, put your creases in here. Don't worry about being careful, because it's not going to project across the topology. One there, make one right there, and then I'll make one right there. And just for the hell of it, let me put one right here too. Okay, so we've got this, and now we want to head over to our stroke palette. And then let's look at our curve functions, and by default all these will be on. We want to turn off border and turn off polygroups and just say frame mesh. And so whenever we do this, it turns those creases into guides, which is or curves, which will be used as guides by the Zremesher. So if we come down to our Zremesher, let's go ahead and set our target poly count to 0.5, and let's run it through it. It's a pretty quick process. It takes 20 seconds or less usually. And there we go. This isn't terrible. It's usable, right? And then see, we can use this to our advantage, because now we're not dealing with such crazily dense geometry. But what we should have done before we went through and did all this is we should have made a duplicate. So let's go ahead and do that. Make a duplicate. Come on now. We'll work on this one. Actually, I'm just going to bring this down. Let's go back up to where we had our new geo. Okay. And then what we're going to do from this point is we're just going to do a projection. So with these two on, I'm just going to say project. Not going to mess around with any of these sliders, and I'm just going to hit project all. And then basically what I want to do is every time I subdivide by hitting Control D, I want to do a projection. Control D, project. Control D, project. Let me go ahead and solo this. So essentially we have about the same quality, but our topology is acting much more nicely. And the previous one was nearly 300,000 polygons. Right now we're at not even 125,000, right? And so once you're done with this, then you can start coming through and focusing on the details. And we really haven't taken too terribly long. You're probably going to spend at least 10, 15 or 20 minutes if you were to go through and make a decent ZFever rig or a ZFever mesh. So by doing that and coming through and then following your reference and coming through and adding those features that you need to, you can get to this point pretty darn quickly, right? On this one, I've gone ahead and added some fingernails, etc. Started adding some detail to this, and you can see, I've added some of the skin detail. We're not going to cover so much of that, but I will show you how to work with alphas a little bit. So let me grab the standard brush, and whenever I'm doing things like this, I wanted to either use some sort of scatter brush, or sometimes I'll just do it by hand, and I'll just grab a drag rect and an alpha, right? So let me make sure I'm working with the right one. Okay, I already have it selected. And so what I want to do is, whenever you're working with pores, you want to make sure that you're paying attention to how things actually flow. So make sure that you're using some reference. And really all I'm doing is clicking and dragging these out, right? And skin is going to flow around the the underlying detail, right? So down here, like this was just me just scratching around, seeing how I wanted things to go. But if you look at your hand, you'll see that like around this area, it's going to flow with it's the pores are always going from somewhere to another place, right? It's the best way um, to explain it. So if you're playing around with alphas, just make sure that you aren't just going through there and going, oh, oh, I'm just gonna throw some alphas on there, because it's wrong. Okay, so I hope that this has been helpful. By using things like this, if I were you, I would, you know, take my time, make something along these lines, right? So this, because what you can do from here is, if you have to make any sort of changes, you can do it from this level rather than, and get it, right and where you want it to be, versus having to go back and make a whole brand new arm or something like that. So you can do this with all sorts of things, with noses, lips, um, anything anatomical or organic, or just anything in general. So it's a good practice to do, and it's a good way to build up your library. So yes, your library. You don't want to have to sculpt things whenever you don't have to, right? It just makes you that much faster. So, like I said, I hope this has been helpful. Definitely check out that reference that I pointed you towards. If you need alphas, head over to the ZFever group, and I've got a crap ton of alphas that are free. Just have a look in the files section, and it should get you where you need to be. If you're new, please subscribe. If you're returning, thanks again for watching. Again, I hope this has been helpful. Hope you guys have had a great week, and happy Z brushing, guys. Take care.